Well, good morning and welcome back to my intermediate writing class. Professor Kent Lee here. Today we're going to talk about topic sentences, and along with that I'm also going to talk about theses or thesis statements. So first, a little note about the terms and the usage. The topic sentence is the main idea of a paragraph, a body paragraph in the body of your essay. By the way, you should say body section or body paragraph. Don't say body parts. I know Korean has borrowed the word part or patsu from English into Korean, but when you talk about, say, an essay, it's better to say, more accurate and precise to say body paragraph, body section. Don't say body parts. Some of my students have done that in the past, and it sounds like something from CSI. Body parts, oh, there's his arms over there and his leg is over there, or something that sounds awful. Body sections. So the body paragraphs, each body paragraph has kind of a main idea sentence somewhere in it. It doesn't have to be the beginning. It could be toward the end. It could be somewhere else occasionally. It depends on the kind of writing you're doing. The kind of writing I'm used to, it's usually at or toward the beginning, but especially in humanities papers, it might be more common for a main idea sentence, a topic sentence, to be toward the end of a paragraph. That's common. It depends really on what you're doing. Then there's a thesis statement or a thesis, and that's the main idea of the whole essay, and it's usually presented in the introduction paragraph. Now, the plural of thesis is theses. It is one of those, it's from Greek, and so there's some academic and technical words in English that come from Latin and Greek, where the singular ends in is, like thesis, basis, and the plural is es, theses, bases, neurosis, neuroses, and so on. Thesis is either like main idea. You talk about the main idea statement of an essay, or another context, oh, the thesis of his book is such and such, or the thesis of his talk was such and such. It is not the same as a manuscript or an article or a research article, or like what you call in Korean a sononmun. If you're talking about a thesis as a written document, that would be a major research document that you do as part of your master's or PhD program. You do original research and you write an 80-page thesis, maybe for your master's degree, or a 200-page dissertation or thesis for your PhD degree. But then when somebody just writes a research article or a magazine article, that's not a thesis, that's an article as such, or maybe a manuscript if it's not published yet. So keep that in mind. So I had you, for your homework, look at some examples in the book. So let's go to section 2.4 on page 22. And so the first section, exercise 1. So you're supposed to look at these and decide if these were okay, if these could these be fixed, repaired, can we salvage them, like kind of save them, repair them, or should we just go and kill them, get rid of them? Right, exercise 1, the first set, number 1. In this essay I will discuss. That's not something you do in a college essay. That's very self-announcing, self-referential. You're referring to yourself. Only in certain kinds of academic writing would you do this, like, well, maybe in your master's or PhD thesis, when you're doing public speaking, even a formal academic presentation. This would be okay. In this talk, I'm going to explain such and such. Certain kinds of academic writing, like you're writing a document to apply for a research grant, or you're writing a proposal for a project or something. But in normal college essays, this usually sounds wordy, self-announcing. Here I am, I'm going to tell you. Don't tell us what you're going to do, just do it. And it also violates a certain kind of linguistic principle of informativeness. So there are certain kind of unwritten rules of conversation or writing or how we humans communicate. And one of them is that we should be informative, appropriately informative. And this applies in different ways, in different contexts, in different languages and cultures. different genres of writing, for college academic writing or writing beyond college and say graduate school. Self-announcing, or at least too much self-announcing or such, doesn't sound good. It's wordy, it's distracting, you're putting focus on yourself, and it's usually just unnecessary in most cases. And I will discuss. So don't see what you're going to, just do it. Present something that's more informative. Say actually, what are the differences? Don't just say I'm going to discuss the differences between the American and English legal systems. I've divided my report into 5 sections. Boring, not informative. That's excessively wordy and it serves no purpose. There might be cases like in your PhD dissertation, your PhD thesis, where you say, you write a research manuscript for if you're a professor or a PhD student, you might say, I'm going to divide this, or this is the first section, we'll do such and such, and so on, maybe, but not in a college essay, likely. So I've divided my report into 5 sections. Boring, just get rid of that. Instead of saying, I'm going to talk about the main differences, briefly outline what those differences are. The main differences between the English and American legal systems are ABC. Give like a few phrases that summarize them, ABC, and then talk about A in your first body section, and talk about B in your next body section, and C in the next body section. A body section might be 1 or more paragraphs. Maybe you were trained in a 5-paragraph essay, and the real world, the reality is it can be as many paragraphs as you need. Main point A might be broken up into subpoints and taking several paragraphs each. Number 2, I will conclude by proposing marijuana should be legalized. Boring, self-announcing. Of course, this is a common idea, marijuana legalization in the US and North America, Europe, for scientific and research-based reasons. This has become popular. So this is self-announcing, and instead of concluding, this is probably an argument you want to formulate more informatively and coherently as a thesis in the introduction. So in the introduction, you're probably going to turn this into a thesis statement saying marijuana should be legalized because ABC, for reasons ABC, and in 1 or 2 sentences present a brief summary of those reasons. Each of those reasons will be developed in a body section of 1 or more body paragraphs. 3, the opinion of the present author of this essay is that the importance of the monarchy should be reduced. Awfully wordy, verbose, wordy, self-announcing, boring. It's not informative. Instead, okay, I don't know what country we're talking about. Let's say it could be Britain, England, the UK. Just say directly, the importance of the monarchy should be reduced because, or for reasons ABC. Briefly summarize what those are, or give one reason and then several subpoints to that reason. The importance of the monarchy should be reduced. Let's say it's another country. The importance of the monarchy should be reduced in order to further the development of democracy. And then present major subpoints about how it would promote democracy or such, or other cultural reasons for reducing the role of the monarchy in your country. Same thing with number 4, wordy, self-announcing, self-referring, self-referential, boring. It's not informative. Again, you should say the role of the monarchy needs to be changed, minimized. Maybe say exactly how here it should be minimized, or in what ways, or a main reason, which will be broken up into several main sub-arguments, or should be reduced for A, B, and C reasons. 5, now we will look at reasons for public resistance to the COVID-19 vaccines in the UK or the US. This sounds like maybe a news magazine article. It's not bad, but for academic writing, professional writing, it would be better just to say reasons for public resistance to the vaccine come from, state 1 factor or state maybe 3 factors that you're going to, or 4 that you're going to cover. So kind of summarize, present a more informative thesis or main idea, summarize what that main reason and maybe several related reasons are, or summarize the reasons here. Reasons for public resistance to COVID-19 vaccines in the US are due to misguided ideas about personal freedom and autonomy, for example, and that could then be broken down into several, maybe 3 or 4 related key factors behind that misunderstanding or misconception of freedom, liberty, and autonomy and such. So these are things that maybe are kind of broad and maybe not necessarily topic sentences, because these are really essay topics. And so I'm kind of putting topic sentences and thesis statements together in this assignment in this video. Part 2. These are all kind of related. Let me just say that basically these are all not informative. These are all pretty boring. Number 1, computer technology is developed very quickly over time. Short time is essential nowadays. Absolutely boring and not informative. Now, in some writing cultures, you're trying to say something kind of more general to kind of establish a kind of feeling between the reader and the writer. Maybe you want the reader to feel comfortable, and you might start with a fairly general statement. But in English academic writing or professional writing, this wouldn't work. This would be considered boring, not informative, and the reader is first going to say, this sounds like the writer has nothing to say. Tell me something new, even from the introduction. It should be kind of informative or more persuasive. This would not be informative unless you were talking to an old man who has been living in a cave for the past 50 years, or he's been living on a remote island, stranded on a remote island in the Pacific for 50 years and has just been discovered. Otherwise, this would not be at all interesting or newsworthy or informative. Same thing for number 2. This might have been informative if you wrote this back in 1970, but not today. The same is really true for the rest of these sentences. They're all boring. They're all bland, extremely general, overgeneral, not at all informative. You could create a thesis statement for a whole essay about the need for specific computer skills for the coming 4th industrial revolution, or the coming AI age, or this age of automation, as machines and computer programs are increasingly replacing workers and making workers redundant. That could be a decent thesis statement if it's fairly specific. If you're talking about now and the future, and you say certain specific computer skills like programming and natural language processing or something like that. Then each paragraph could have a thesis statement, a main idea statement about a specific type of computer skill. So one paragraph could have a thesis statement about programming skills. For some programming languages, knowing programming languages and maybe knowing several programming languages in a certain field will be necessary for finding a job. A second paragraph, at least some understanding of how AI works in natural language programming or machine learning will be necessary for many workers. So you're not talking about everybody, and everybody needs to know this. Some people maybe need to know programming. Some people need to have some kind of an understanding, not necessarily being able to write AI programs, but an understanding of how this works. If you're working in a company, and you just need to have a good understanding of how this works. Third paragraph, some workers need a training and even certification in computer security skills, like cloud computing security or server security, maintaining servers. So computer security skills. So one paragraph could have a specific topic sentence about programming languages, especially for certain fields. The second topic sentence could be some workers will need at least certain level of understanding or proficiency in AI and related fields and how such technologies work. A third paragraph could have a topic sentence stating that some workers will need an understanding of computer security and security systems and security software and hardware and cloud computing security and such, and so on. So each paragraph could talk about a specific area of computer skills. So those would be valid as topic sentences. If one of these, taking number one, computer technology is developed very boring. Let's say computer security issues have, let's say with all the hacking and ransomware events in the news. So an understanding of computer security is an essential skill for some workers. Or number two, a person with strong programming skills, particularly in languages like Python, Java, etc., can succeed in the modern world because they can start with very competitive, very good salaries. Or three, instead of information is power, let's say knowledge of computer security systems is a powerful skill in this technological age, which will open up many employment opportunities and help companies to survive attacks from hackers. Okay, those would be ways of, for example, you might in your homework you might have come up with other creative ways which will probably be fine. I'm kind of thinking of the big picture, how these work in the whole essay. So, along those lines, exercise 3 deals with English medium instruction, and that's a policy that's popular in Korea now and other universities in other countries, where certain numbers of courses, not in English departments, but in general departments, business, engineering, science, biology, etc., have to be taught in English. And I previously worked at a university with such a policy, and one time I had a job where I was helping newer professors with this, and I came to realize that this was not a good policy, certainly not the way it was implemented. So I've become rather skeptical of this policy and the way some Korean universities are doing it, the way they are implementing it. So EMI, here we have an intro paragraph, and it talks about how EMI policies have become popular and the very basics of how it works. This is a good intro paragraph because it kind of explains the situation. It's specific background information. Then you get to probably a thesis statement. I would consider this a thesis statement. It could be a topic sentence depending on the context. If this would be a good intro paragraph, so this could be a good thesis statement. The last sentence of this paragraph: if Korean universities wish to implement EMI, then careful consideration is needed in how it is implemented at various majors and how it is taught. That could be a good topic sentence at the end of a paragraph, or in this case, I think this works well as a thesis because the next paragraph gets more specific. And I would say that the first sentence is a topic sentence. EMI programs need to be tailored to the needs of students by department rather than one policy for all departments. So you could start the paragraph with this topic sentence, and that seems to be the topic of the whole paragraph. Or I can kind of reverse it. I could start by talking about maybe talking about examples or research on how it has been implemented at different universities and different departments. So I could just talk about describing the implementation and the problems of that, some of the problems that have arisen. And then I could end with this as a topic sentence. The paragraph could end at or near the end of the paragraph. EMI programs need to be tailored to the needs of students by department, rather than one policy for all departments. That is in fact one of my criticisms of how this has been done at other universities. So those are how topic sentences work within the paragraph, but also within the framework of the whole essay. So you have to consider your topic sentences within the framework of your whole essay. They're not just standalone things. It's not just to make the paragraph stand out, but it functions as part of the flow of arguments. The next paragraph could then talk about other aspects of implementing EMI, maybe services for professors. And another paragraph could talk about services for students to help them with EMI classes. Or even after this paragraph, you could have another paragraph about other aspects of departments and implementation and such at different universities, and so on. So those are how you would do topic sentences. Now let me talk about another example. So earlier you looked at a sample paragraph about psycholinguistics when we were talking about definitions, and that's on page 19. By the way, make sure you have the corrected version of my book, which I uploaded earlier I think last Monday or so. I sent out that I corrected my announcement and said, oops, I got the wrong version of the book, computer problems, download it again. So make sure you have the corrected version. For example, the psycholinguistics paragraph is on page 19. So let's look at that. So here you have it. It starts with a topic sentence. This is just an isolated paragraph, and there's a topic sentence. It looks very you wouldn't typically write a paragraph like this by itself. So we'll look at how you could maybe expand this into a longer essay that makes more sense. So it starts with what would be a topic sentence. While psycholinguistics can refer to language acquisition, more properly it's the study of human language processing, including psychological and neurological aspects of learning a first or second language. Okay, nice topic sentence. Now what can we do with this? Oh, well, we could turn this into a whole essay. So think about why we are writing this. Well, let's say I'm writing this to people in the world of applied linguistics, like people who study or do language education and also research on learning a second language, applied linguistics. And in their training, they might have been kind of taught some wrong things about other fields of linguistics, including psycholinguistics. And they might have heard some stuff that was very general or not very accurate. They may have some wrong ideas about what psycholinguistics is. So I'm going to kind of correct that, but also try to sell them. I want to sell them, hey, if you're in this field, take a psycholinguistics course as part of your training, especially if you want to do research. If you're a college language teacher and you also want to do research and teach, a second language, you should take psycholinguistics. And even if you're not going to do it, you should have some understanding because it could help you. So I'm going to have an intro paragraph, and I'm going to present a thesis in the intro for the whole essay, something like having to do with the value of psycholinguistics for research in language education and applied linguistics. And then I could turn that into a thesis for the whole essay. So that's my idea. I'll turn it into a thesis statement for a whole essay like this. Though psycholinguistics is not the same as applied linguistics, it can be nonetheless a valuable tool for those conducting research in language education and applied linguistics. That sounds good as a thesis. It's pretty specific, and it gives you an idea of what I'm going to talk about in the rest of the essay. So then we want to kind of wrap that into a nice introduction paragraph, intro paragraph, like this. And I'm writing to applied linguistics people. Maybe they're in their training for applied linguistics and language education. So I would present an introduction like this. Some in the world of second language research might misunderstand the field of psycholinguistics This is unfortunate because it offers many powerful techniques for understanding how language and language learning function. Though psycholinguistics is not the same as applied linguistics, it can nonetheless be a valuable tool for those conducting research in language education and applied linguistics. That was my thesis right there. And after my thesis, I've got an overview of what's going to come, main points in the body. This includes laboratory research methods and even techniques for studying classroom groups, as well as theoretical models that are relevant to language learning. Okay, so I've got a thesis, and I've got kind of then an overview or a plan of the main points that are going to be developed in the body. So I've got the thesis here. I outline the rest of my essay based on the sample paragraph that I started, that sample paragraph in the book. And maybe I'll break that paragraph up and develop each part and turn it into a whole essay. So the first part of that paragraph was defining psycholinguistics. In this whole paragraph itself might more or less be kept intact. We're basically define psycholinguistics. In the next paragraph, I'm going to talk maybe more in depth about psychological laboratory techniques that might be of interest to people in applied linguistics. And then the next paragraph, I'll talk about classroom research designs, and the technical term is quasi-experimental. Don't worry about that. Quasi-experimental designs for applied linguistics based on psycholinguistics. And then 4, I'll talk about maybe some interesting, useful theoretical models in psycholinguistics that would be probably of interest to people doing different kinds of applied linguistics research. And for each one, I will develop a more detailed outline, defining psycholinguistics, talk about its origins, focus, and methods. Maybe that's one paragraph in the body. Next, psychological laboratory techniques. I won't bore you with the details, but I will maybe talk about at least several that would be of interest to the readers. Next paragraph, classroom research designs, like ABC, different research methods there. Number 4, some popular theoretical models, like L1 and L models of L1 and L2 lexicons. Lexicon is like the store of vocabulary you have in your head for each language, and there are different models or ideas of how these work when you have your native language, and you have maybe you have 2 native languages in your head, and maybe you've got second languages, 1 or 2 or 3 second languages you've learned later in life, and you've got vocabulary stores for each of these, and how do they kind of overlap and interact. Reading models and discourse schemas, don't worry about what that is. It's psycholinguistic stuff, but I would then, each of these could be a paragraph, in fact. Popular theoretical models, that could be a paragraph, or that could be a whole section. I'll break it up into several paragraphs. One paragraph on L1, L2 lexicons, another paragraph on reading and discourse schemas, and another paragraph on something else, and so on. So that's how you'd use an outline in thesis statements and topic sentences. So next time we are going to get into some other kinds of paragraphs, and again talk about certain kinds of paragraphs and how they fit within a whole essay. And then I'll give you an assignment later where I'm going to have you practice that. You've gotten an assignment that I've posted in the LMS, the email assignment, the email writing assignment. So that's due right before the holiday. And then after the holiday, you'll have a second writing assignment. So in the next couple of lectures, I will talk about things like classification paragraphs and such. Then I'm going to, after the holiday, you'll have a little short writing assignment about that to practice that. So again, any questions, post them in the LMS, in the comments under in the announcements or in the assignments or whatever, or email me, let me know. And I will see you next time. So enjoy your homework, and goodbye.